Birds are in the sky.
What makes a warrior is how they see challenges and adversity as opportunities. Warriors grow, prepare, and prevail through their crucibles. Whether you're active duty, retired, or veteran, whether your battlefield is in entrepreneurship, business, or just climbing life's ladder, you'll gain some of what makes a warrior a warrior. Insight. Lessons of grit, adaptability, and the warrior's spirit will inspire you to smash through anything that stands in the way of your mission. Buckle your seatbelt as fellow U.S. Marines, Emmy Award winner Colonel Riccoh player, and international best-selling author Zachary Green interview fellow warriors and share how they conquered their crucibles.
Yes, sir. We're gonna smoke them.
Andrea, thank you for joining us. Like Zach said, I'm Riccoh player, and my partner in crime here is too modest. He is a best-selling author. He is a serial entrepreneur, and he's a Marine veteran. But most of all, he's interested in teaching other entrepreneurs what they can do to be successful. So thank you for joining us. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about you, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Andrea Baker. I am currently the Vice President of Philanthropy. Philanthropy is a company here in Cincinnati that is very niche and very one of a kind. We don't have any competitors. We don't have anybody else in our space. We provide full service foundation management services to professional athletes, and we only do that for professional athletes. So really was able to come into this company at the ground floor. Company's been around for almost 13 years. Our anniversary will be in the next week. It'll be our 13th anniversary. And I started when the company was, 2 rooms, 2 clients, and, really about 2 years in. So I've been able to see a lot of growth there. I've been able to participate in that growth. And that's been really exciting as an opportunity for me to get in on the ground floor. Personally, my husband and I were entrepreneurs, before I joined Philanthropy, and we've continued to be interested. My husband's never been without a side hustle. So even while he's been employed, so it's just kind of in his blood. So I kind of get it. No matter what environment I'm in, I'm listening to new ideas, really being surrounded by visionaries. And I know that Zach knows this. I also had the opportunity to work here in Cincinnati with the Entrepreneurs Organization and work as a chapter admin for them when the Entrepreneurs Organization was doing some restructuring and really needed somebody to take a critical look at what their gaps were and how they really were failing some of the entrepreneurs here in Cincinnati and work with them as they restructured and worked as that administrator. So there's no part of my life that hasn't been touched by the entrepreneurial journey. And it's honestly something I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate that the backbone of what happens here in the US is all about entrepreneurs being successful.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And again, the way Andrew and I first met several years ago is when I joined Entrepreneurs Organization. And I'd just like to pause for a second or two and talk about that. For anybody that is got a company that they've started and it's starting to build up and you're starting to get those growing pains, EO is a tremendous resource for that Entrepreneurs Organization. It's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to get together on a monthly basis and kind of share what's working, what's not working, and talk about personal issues, business issues, and everything. And Andrea was essential in helping to get that chapter reorganized here in Cincinnati and coordinating all of those. So Andrea, thanks for sharing that. What we like to talk about in the Warrior's Voice, and it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a veteran just getting back from Afghanistan or Iraq, we like to talk about, as the Colonel calls it, rhinos. Iron sharpens iron. We want to dig into those times in your life where you had adversity and hardship. It could be a personal adversity, a physical adversity, or in a lot of the cases that you and I have had in our times as being entrepreneurs, is a business adversity. What you learned from that hardship and how that made you grow to become a better leader and a better warrior. Are there any stories you might be able to think of on the top of your head where you really had a struggle, either professionally, personally, physically, and that caused you to grow and change as a result of that struggle?
Yeah, I mean, probably unfortunately too numerous to mention, but fortunately, because as we all know, without those experiences, you don't get better, right? So it's that double-edged sword, right? So for me, I think the most recent one and the one that'll be the most relevant for everybody who's listening is really this, this universal experience that we all had with COVID. So to share a little bit more about the company that I work for, one of our, one of the things, the main vehicles that we fundraise through is live in-person events. So we're looking at March 2020 and a full calendar of events from March to December of that year, where we have, anywhere from 150 to 400 people in a room together in a gala doing fundraising. And for our business, and based on our business model at that time, that was roughly 80 to 90% of our income structure, right? So really, being hit with knowing that we couldn't travel too. So just again, we're based in Cincinnati and we travel in person to all of those markets across the country. So we had basically not only our fundraising vehicle was compromised, but our ability to get in market with our donors and our clients was compromised also. So we really are taking a small shop, and we had to not only take our business and make our business virtual so that all of our employees could work together, but we had to make everything where it needed to be for our donors and for our professional athletes that were our clients. And it was just a massive undertaking and change to do all at one time. So for us, that was a huge, and again, I think you talk about this a lot. It was a mental barrier. Right? That was the first barrier that we got to, was this is who we are. This is what we do. There's no other options, really. So we had to really kind of be disciplined and double down and focused and say, no, that's basically limited thinking. We're limiting ourselves. We know that really our clients, and they're actually what people are passionate about, what people are donating to. So we haven't lost our connection to our clients. We haven't lost our connection to our donors. We just have to find a different vehicle. So really what we spent most of March and April doing was getting all of the infrastructure in place to do everything we needed to do virtually, but at the same time, being ready to go back to in-person as quickly as we could. And that was it's interesting because some of the barriers that came about when we wanted to go back in person were really a struggle too, because we had this level of comfort with things, being status quo, where people had, gotten really comfortable to no commute, no traveling, and those other hardships. So for us as a leadership team, we had to do a couple of things in each one of these areas. And one of the big things we had to do was model, right? So we had to model that we weren't afraid of trying something new, right? So we had to all be, as interested, as easy it would be to complain that this is what we do, where somebody else is taking away the opportunity for us to do what we do, and we have zero control. We could have spent all day complaining about that. And instead we didn't do that.
That is such a warrior trait. Improvise, overcome, adapt, find a way to accomplish that mission. It's very, very
right. And we had to model that for everybody.
So Andrea, you've identified some of the hardships, some of the adaptation, especially maneuvering in a COVID space. So for philanthropy, what's the future looking like?
Yeah, I mean, the future looks like two things. It looks like versatility, right? So we can no longer be what a one-trick shop, right? We have to have our toolkit has to be in place, because the expectations of the people we're serving, and whether it's our clients or our donors or the recipients of the programming, we have to be able to reach them in all of these different channels we've developed. We cannot rely on just in person. So that's one of the big, the big factors for us, is that we have to be adaptable, we have to be flexible, and we have to have a lot more tools in our toolkit.
A lot of tools in the toolkit, you know, knowing when to use those and how to use those. That is a great warrior trait, a great warrior talent is knowing how you can improvise, overcome those challenges, and then use all those different tools. Talk to me a little bit about what inspires you. What gets you up out of bed in the morning?
A couple of things. One is I like creating and being involved in new things. So I like being there at the place where something is conceived that hasn't been out in the world before, and I get the ability to kind of layer up or add my signature or my stamp to that new thing. That's very exciting for me. But overall, the biggest thing for me is watching people improve themselves. That's one of the things I love about philanthropy. We see our employees, we see the athletes that we work for, seeing them go from being afraid of doing public speaking to when you've got a guy that's, you know, year 5 in his foundation and he can do an entire speech to a group of 200 people. I mean, that's really edifying.
Andrea, if you could go back in time and you could pick anywhere along your personal timeline and give yourself some advice to the younger version of you, what would that advice be?
I would say that when my husband and he had several retail stores. We were in our, he's a little bit older than me, early 20s. We did not surround ourselves with the 2 groups of people that we should have at that time. One is experts in those things that are necessary to operate a business. We didn't have the best attorneys. We didn't have the best CPAs. We didn't have those advisors that we truly trusted. The second thing, and this goes back to what Zach said about the EO organization, we were not plugged into a community of other entrepreneurs who understood what our lifestyle was like, what our struggles were like, and what things we really needed to focus on and what the demands were on us. And I would have suggested both of those things as additions to our lifestyle.
That's great. That's great. Well, any other new projects you're working on? Anything else you want to share with our team?
Actually, not anything new right now. I mean, for us, again, as a company with philanthropy, it's really continuing to react and grow to the space of nonprofits. I really believe that what you're going to see in nonprofits holistically, there's going to be a lot of change in the next 6 to 12 months. There's going to be legislative change. There's going to be change that's going to come down from really one of the things that's happening right now, which is free agency. If you guys follow the NFL at all, the way the deals are coming out, the frequency of guys moving, where they're moving markets, I think that will change that nonprofit space for athletes considerably. So again, we're assessing, we're engaged, and we're waiting to see, what the opportunities are.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, what we like to do is we wrap up before we wrap up with our final dedication. Andrea, how can our guests get a hold of you and philanthropy and any other ways that they may want to get in touch with you?
Great. I appreciate that, Zach. So I can be reached at my email address, which is andrea.baker@philanthropy.net. And I always spell out philanthropy because it's kind of hard. It's PROLANTHROPY.net.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Colonel, any last minute questions for you?
I guess my last question, Andrea, would be if, as a woman maneuvering into spaces that are often dominated by males, if there are any young Andreas watching or listening and you want to encourage them, what advice or insight would you share with them?
You have every right to be in the room.
Keep it simple.
Don't doubt that.
I think that's fantastic. Well, Andrea, we like to finish each one of our podcasts with a dedication to a former warrior. Being that this is Women's History Month, being that you're an amazing female entrepreneur, I'd like to honor somebody very special and dear to me, and that is my great-grandmother, Nanny Ray Green. I always called her Nanny Ray. She was born in 1884 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Now, keep in mind, 1884, we are 20 years after the Civil War. She did not have electricity where they lived. They did not have telephones that were widely accepted and out there. And it was also a time where women didn't even have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to do a lot of the same things that the men had the opportunity. That didn't stop her. And what she did is, back in those days in Atlantic City, the big thing were hats. These big, incredible, gorgeous hats looked similar to like what you'd see at the Kentucky Derby or something. And so she was walking by one of the millineries, the hat stores in Atlantic City, and they were going out of business. And they had like a 90% off for the store. And she walked in and says, "How much for the whole store?" And they looked at her funny. She goes, "No, I want to buy the entire store." Was able to get the deal, a nice fire sale deal. From there, she ended up opening up several other hat stores up and down the Atlantic coast, and made quite a bit of money at a time where women really shouldn't have been working and weren't allowed to. My great-grandfather was able to be a dependent spouse back in the days where that was crazy. They booked passage on the original Queen Mary when it was first came out. And she spent her last couple decades of her life out in Santa Monica near my grandparents. She died at 107 years old, 107. So what she saw during those 107 years, the birth of the communication age, the internet, automobiles, just nothing short of spectacular. And when we asked her what the secret was to living that long, those 107 years, she said she has a shot of brandy every night before she goes to bed. She loves bacon, and she likes to get out and walk on the beach every single day. So that was her recipe for success as a great female entrepreneur. So we'd like to dedicate this show to my Nanny Ray and all the wonderful female entrepreneurs out there like Andrea. And with that, we'll conclude like we do with every one of our podcasts, Semper Fidelis.
Thank you for listening to The Warrior's Voice. If you haven't, please subscribe to this show and be the first to hear new episodes with fellow U.S. Marines Riccoh Player and Zachary Green. You can also visit www.warrior-framework.com to learn more about how you and/or your business can use the Warrior Framework to conquer personal and professional crucibles.